for Success Express, your business, career, and financial radio magazine. Hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Well, get on that train. We're going to go to Tennessee.
The train's moving.
It's moving already. We're going to go chat with Ralph Masingill Jr. He's the author of Conquer, Change, and Win, an easy-to-read, fun book on the serious subject of change. We're going to have a success story, and he's going to share a story with us about his big change in life, and really kind of proves that there's, it's never too late to change. And he's going to talk about that and some of his inspirations in life, so looking forward to that. And then from Tennessee, up in the Smoky Mountain region, we're going to go to Ohio.
Oh, righty there.
Yeah. We're going to go chat with Sarah Elliston. She's the author of Lessons from a Difficult Person, How to Deal with People Like Us. She's going to talk about office gossip.
Yay.
Yay. I know. It's going to talk about it's toxic, it's unproductive, can get you fired, actually.
But it is kind of funny.
But there's sometimes the gossip stems from whatever is going on in the management side, too. But she's going to talk about how to deal with it so that you can continue being a productive employee or manager, leader, and keep everybody happy. So no office gossip. Leave that for social media.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah, right.
Gossip online. Woo.
Yeah. And then we're going to go down to San Diego, California, to chat with Ward Heinrichs. He's an employment attorney, and he's going to talk to us about pot in the workplace. Because recreational cannabis is now legal in California, and so does that mean, when you take a lunch break, you can go get high?
I think when you're working, that's not really recreation.
Well, some people have martini lunches. Can you have a marijuana lunch?
I don't even think you're supposed to do that anymore.
I wouldn't think it. Well, every place has its thing. But anyway, happy Hump Day, everybody. It is January 24th, 2018, and the important thing about today is that we're here, and it's National Peanut Butter Day. And I love peanut butter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So this show is dedicated to the Peanut Patch in Yuma, Arizona, one of our favorite places to get peanut butter. So how's that for a little plug for them?
Yours is really good.
Really good. And they have peanut brittle that they make and homemade fudge, and it's just a cool place. So check them out, thepeanutpatch.com. Anyway, I just wanted to give them a shout-out. We like them.
Good.
You're listening to Big Blend Radio's Success Express Business and Career Show. We are streaming live from Tucson, Arizona. It's a chilly Tucson, but sunny Tucson, Arizona. We're your hosts, Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith, the crazy mother-daughter travel team and publishers of the digital interactive Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. Check it out at blendradioandtv.com. We also publish Parks and Travel magazine. You can get that at nationalparktraveling.com. The February-March issue is about to hit the digital newsstand, so one of the best things to do is sign up for our weekly Big Blend email newsletter on either of our websites, and you will get a weekly newsletter with articles and recipes and interviews and also the magazines as they come out every month.
That's right.
Okay, are you ready to go to Tennessee, Nancy?
Yeah.
I think so.
I like
Smoky Mountains are calling. Ralph Masingill's out there, and I know he's always ready for a good time, so stay tuned, everybody. Ralph Masingill, who we call Mr. Change Agent, is back on Big Blend Radio today to share his story of change and how he became a successful change agent. Ralph is a best-selling author. He's an award-winning advisor, a coach, a marketing expert. He's presented seminars and papers about quality and change all across the country. I know that he went to Columbia, so he likes to hop around the world, too, not just stay in the States, because he likes to have a change of scenery, right?
All the time.
I know. He's also an entrepreneur that has 40 years of professional business experience. He founded his company, Masingill Marketing Associates, to help individuals and organizations plan for and ultimately embrace, guess what? Change. His company has won over 850 national and regional advertising and marketing awards. Now, his latest book, it's a must-read book. It's called Conquer, Change, and Win. Not wine, as I like to say, but it's Conquer, Change, and Win, an easy-to-read, fun book on the serious subject of change. We're happy to have Ralph as one of our Big Blend expert contributors here in Big Blend Radio and also in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. You'll see him if you go to our expert department on blendradioandtv.com. But the most important thing is to go get his book. You can get it on Amazon, or just go to conquerchangeandwin.com. Mr. Change Agent, how's it going?
It's
Welcome
going
back.
terrifically well, ladies. I tell you, things are warming up here in East Tennessee, and it's just been a terrific day, and looking forward to talking to two ladies who know what they're doing.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you recognize that, because some others need. Can you say that again? Just saying.
Well, I don't stutter.
Oh, wow. You got to get it while you can, because he's already on to the next thing. That's what happens with change, you know. We're really excited because we're going to be featuring this up. Well, it's all, if you go to blendradioandtv.com, type in Ralph Mason Gill, you'll find him. I answered 10 questions about being successful in the world of change, being a change agent. But he also shared a story, his personal story about change, because it really is. It's never too late, is it, to make a big change in life?
No, it isn't. And I've made several big changes, and the one we're going to discuss tonight is the one that not only changed my life, but it saved my life.
Wow. See, that's a big deal, and sometimes we don't realize when, that big change, that hand is going knock, knock on your door saying it's time to change now. Sometimes we like to close our eyes to that.
Well, I know if you need any advice and counsel on how to ignore the obvious, you need to contact me because I'm an expert at it.
Okay. So when did you realize that change is important? Was it before the big change? Okay, everybody, we're not talking about that big change in life. You know what I mean?
No, I'm heterosexual.
All right, he's got a deep voice too, just to make sure. But did you know about change before you went through this bigger change in your life that really saved your life?
Yes, I was a Deming disciple before I had my big change, and Edwards Deming, and it is with an S. Deming is the fellow who changed everything with Japan. He is the guy who brought quality products and quality thinking to the Japanese, and each year the Japanese give the highest business award they can give, and it's called the Edwards Deming Award. So he is revered still in Japan, and of course that was some 40 years ago when he did that.
Wow. So that's where you got involved in understanding that we have to have metamorphosis in our life.
Absolutely, and we need to do it constantly because there's no standing still. We're either going forward or we're going backward, and those are the only two choices. Treading water will cause you to drown.
That's true.
You can't do it for very long.
No, and it'll use all your energy up, and then when you decide you want to change, it's too late. And it was almost too late for me.
Well, this is an amazing story because you were very, very successful, but not happy in your successes. And it was like, so your unhappiness, you turned into, you enjoyed the shine a little too much, shall we say, the moonshine over there.
Well, now you could leave off those adjectives. You could leave off too much, a little too much.
A lot?
Every other day or so, I would eat some bread, but other than that, I had a liquid diet.
Wow, that's pretty intense. And yet, at the same time, here you were successful, doing business, and did everybody look? Hey, there's successful Ralph. Meantime, there was the other side going on.
Yes, I was absolutely, totally, completely miserable. And the best thing I did was hide it. That is, in order to keep my job and things moving. But it was the worst possible thing I could do for myself.
And family. I think it's hard.
And yes, absolutely, family. That's another whole story, frankly. But you affect more than one person when you make a huge mistake. It's almost never isolated to just you and the few things around you. It affects a gamut of folks and places and things.
So was there something missing that made you, if you're successful, people would wonder why you are not happy? Is there something missing?
Well, yes. I was president of a bank, and the bank was very successful. Everything was just hunky-dory. The only problem was that I absolutely despised being a banker.
Oh.
Now, the fact that I was pretty good at it was kind of a oddity, because you're usually good at things you like to do, but I was good at this because I was a great performer.
So there it is. Yeah. So there's, and then how do you move yourself forward when you're in that zone? How do you move yourself out of, unlock the door to Happy Land?
Well, you can't. You can't do it by yourself. That's impossible. Lots of folks have tried. I tried for years. And it just won't work. It will not work. You have to have help. You have to have a spiritual awakening, and you have to have a desire to change what your lifestyle is. You have to be willing to go through a total lifestyle change. And if you're not, you're wasting time.
Is that, do you think, more difficult if the people like your family around you aren't for the change? If you're financially successful and they're all happy with everything they've got, but now you're going to make a change that changes possibly how they are, they're comfy. Does it make it even harder?
Well, it is a situation where, why would you want to do that, Ralph? That's ridiculous. Look around you. And I believed that. And things were based on society's numbers. I was doing very well. The only problem was that I, inside, was absolutely falling apart and miserable and in deep, deep depression. But you would never know it because I was a pretty good actor.
And then where did it go from there? Because you can't keep doing that. It's like being on a treadmill. Eventually,
Well,
yeah.
That's exactly right. And after so long a time, and that so long a time was 27 years.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, Ralph.
Yes.
Wow.
I was a drunk, an alcoholic, practicing alcoholic for 27 years.
Wow.
And it finally got to the point in my life where, and most folks just don't believe this, but it's still true. I was drinking on average a fifth a day.
Whoa.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Wow.
But I also had an unbearable tolerance because I'd been drinking to excess for so long. It took a lot to get me where I thought I wanted to be.
Isn't that also with drugs too? You're always kind of chasing the first high. Like that's what I've heard about. Hard drugs.
This is God had to do this because nobody in their right mind would do it. And I'm sincere when I say I would go to a local bar and I would buy a fifth of liquor and I would throw away the cap, which meant that I was going to drink that before I left.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I would probably be with a couple of guys, and that's exactly what we would do. They'd have theirs, I'd have mine, and we would just absolutely get bonkers, which is something that we never really sobered up because we were always drinking or seeking a drink. So it got to the point that it was just absolutely unrealistic for me to continue on like that. And I got extremely depressed and lost my family, finally lost my businesses. I was down to absolutely bare bones. I ended up moving from a very large, beautiful home to one side of a duplex that I owned to live in. And one afternoon, it was a Thursday afternoon about 4 o'clock, I was really depressed, and a friend of mine had been over visiting, and he had left, and I was there by myself, and I decided enough's enough, so I went into my closet and picked up a double-barrel 20-gauge shotgun, loaded it with 2 shells of number 8 shot, and sat down, took my left shoe and sock off, sat there in that chair, aimed at that gun at point blank range with one of my hands at my heart, and I pulled the trigger to that double-barreled shotgun with my toe and blew myself away. I was pronounced dead, but obviously I didn't die, and things just got to that point where I tried, and I use this phrase because it's factual. I tried my best to commit suicide.
Wow. That's when we get to that point in life, it's such a scary part before you continue your story, because I know that you still had it in you to continue after this, and you're a medical, miracle. And I want you to explain that to people.
That's the truth. Yes. Yes. It was unbelievable that I survived it. When I pulled that trigger with my toe, that the barrel was aimed at my heart. It pulled the barrel down some, and it hit my stomach area and just blew it apart. And before I passed out, I remember trying to hold those intestines in one place.
Wow.
Because they were all over everything.
Wow.
And from that point, the guy and the other side of the duplex heard the shot, came over and called MUS, the folks who took me to the hospital, and from there I was in the hospital for about a month off and on. And I guess the thing that really began to hit me what had happened was one afternoon, and I'd been in the hospital a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a teaching hospital. It's the University of Tennessee Hospital. It's a teaching hospital. The lead doctor came in, and he had 5 doctors with him, interns. And he looked at me, and he said, "Mr. Massengill, I don't know whether you know this or not, but you are an absolute living miracle." And I said, "What do you mean?" And what he told me was that shotgun shells, the shells that I had put in that shotgun, were rusty and were full of dirt, and that those shells had a span of about 6 to 8 inches. And I did not hit my spleen, my stomach, my kidneys. I hit 0 organs, none except my intestines. And those doctors looked at me, and the lead doctor again said, "We have done a little calculating, and we've gotten together, and we believe that, Mr. Massengill, if you welded that shotgun on a steel tripod and froze you in solid ice, that the probability of that shot being repeated is 1 to 1 million.
Wow. Now that would scare me stiff into ice. Like, and I would never look at the shine again. Like, that would be it. I'd be like, you know.
I was affected by that. I didn't drink for another 5 days.
Oh.
Wow.
I'm serious. I am very serious.
So this is okay. So I know in your article you talked about hearing like a voice. You know, you've got that little voice. You know, we all have the voice. And
that's absolutely right.
Did the voice say like, you know, wasn't this close enough?
It said to me, "Ralph, this is not it. You must not do that. This is not it." And, of course, I ignored that voice for 27 years and did a good job of it. But finally, by trying to kill myself, I forced myself into a position of change.
Yeah.
And I went to a treatment center, and from that day, 42 years ago, until now, I have had no alcohol whatsoever. But the other miracle is that a higher power has taken away my need for alcohol. I have no desire to drink alcohol. It does not bother me to be around people who drink. I have a bar in my home. I have probably 50 bottles of wine. My wife enjoys that. And if it bothered me at all, there would be none in this house.
Right.
But I totally lost, and this is the key word, the compulsion to drink any kind of alcohol, and that is an absolute total miracle. It is as rare as hen's teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fight anything. I don't have the stiff arm it. I just don't have the desire to do it.
That's awesome. But
yes, and there have been various professional people, psychiatrists and psychologists, interview me and go over that, and they come away saying it's real, but we've never seen this happen ever before.
Well, it is.
Now,
it
lots
is
of folks quit drinking, but they can't. They still have to. They have to watch it. If you know what I mean.
And go to meetings and
yes,
you know,
and all of that
all the time.
It's like because they always say once an addict, you're always an addict, and you're going to be an addict of just about anything, kind of thing. And
that's absolutely true. I still am. I have no compulsion to drink at all, but it is just a miracle that I am extremely grateful for.
Well, we are too.
Yeah.
You know, and I think.
Well,
and I mean, serious. You know, and we really appreciate that you're in this world, Ralph. And we also really appreciate you sharing this story because I think it's something. It's a very powerful lesson to learn that number one, you can always turn around, but do you think that, you know, people, you know, I want to go back to that, you know, that voice in your head. It's you got the devil on one shoulder, you got the angel on the other shoulder. You know what I mean? One's going, come on, let's go to the bar. The other one going, no, you know, don't do that. But we all know when the gig is up, deep down, on whatever it is, whether it's, you know, you're unhappy at work. And it's interesting, so many people that I know, when you're unhappy and it's like having a toothache is how I look at it. You have a toothache, and if you don't see the dentist, you're going to end up pulling it out yourself, or you're in a massive pain, and you've got to make some kind of change to get rid of that pain. But I think that so many people do end up in places you're told to do it this way. Maybe you were told as your parents, you know, you will become a doctor or you will become this, and society sometimes.
That's
always
correct. And there's always that kind of thing, and it certainly was true of my situation. My life, when I graduated from the University of Tennessee, was planned out for me for the rest of my life.
Well, see, that's part of that, you know.
I rebelled is a part of it. Rebelling is a part of it.
Yeah. I always thought, you know, when I was in South Africa and graduating high school and looking at going to journalism school until they told me I had to do it, and part of it in Afrikaans, I was like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. I'm going to go work with Nancy. She needs help at the magazine, and that's what I want to do. But they, you know, it was interesting because in South Africa, and I know, you know, there was also, I mean, this wasn't just in this country. It's just back in the day, people used to. In South Africa, if you're a male, you're going to go into the military or college. And then after you get out of college, you needed to go to the military. I don't know if I don't think they do that anymore.
I don't know.
But it was mandatory to go into the military. And some of my friends got hurt and some didn't. But then others would go backpacking through Europe or in Africa. Maybe you're going to, you know, safari somewhere for a year. You start traveling to get some life lessons. And sometimes I wonder about that before people go to college, unless it's really something you already know that you're passionate about, like some kids want to be scientists when they're growing up and you can't take them away from a microscope. You know, that's who they are, that's what they want to do. But some, I think, if you can, if you're backpacking and living on peanut butter and bread, it's peanut butter day, I have to say it, then so what? Go out there and do it and experience the world, because I know you've traveled around the world too, so, you know, a lot, Ralph. Don't you think that sometimes people need to travel first before they just, like, box themselves into something that they may not want to do? Because it's expensive to go to college.
Well, it's expensive to go to college, and the arrogance of some who say that the only way to get an education is to go to high school or go to school for 12 years and then to the university for 4 or 5 years. Well, that's what that really is, arrogance. There are many, many, many ways to gain a very solid education. And I am not docking going to the university. It's an easy way to get a basic level of understanding of what you're trying to be in the future. In my case, it was banking. And if it gives you a start, it does not really give you the education you need in order to run anything. It just helps you with many, many of the basics. You've got the basics down. You may be able to ride the bicycle down the straight street, but that's all you can do once you've graduated from bicycle school.
Did you have something in your mind that you actually wanted to do, but you were like, no, you're going to go over here and be a banker? Or did you not know?
I don't really know what I wanted to do, but this is really the way I was brought up in 3 or 4 different ways. For example, I really enjoy percussion instruments, and I always wanted to play drums, and I was not allowed to take drum lessons unless I continued to take piano lessons. Now, I absolutely can play drums like a professional because I've been a professional drummer. And I do know and remember well where middle C is on the piano.
This makes me laugh because I wanted to play the piano, and my sister wanted to play the violin, so my parents decided that I would play the violin and my sister would play the piano. She sucked at both of them, quite frankly, because she really didn't want to play either one. She's not musically inclined. So when we started out, she played the piano like German marches, like boom, boom.
Yeah, well.
And I don't want to talk about my violin playing because cats don't like it even. Well, and then when they swapped us around and I could play the piano, now I play keyboards, or I did when we had our band. But the violin, I admire people who can play it. I don't know how they do it. Well, if you're forced into doing something that isn't you, it is really miserable.
Yeah, it sucks.
Well,
and I think there's a thing of it, conditioning is what it's about.
Well, I think this is what I have learned over the years is you can be good at almost anything if you practice long enough. You can, however, only be great at something you have a passion for and practice a lot.
That's right.
In Conquer, Change, and Win, and this is part of your answers to our 10 questions, and everyone, again, you can read the story and read Ralph's answers if you go to blendradioandtv.com. You say, you must be a jack of all trades and master of them all. And that to me is really fascinating because talking about like how we've all been told, you know, jack of all trades and master of none, how no one can ever do that. And you know, this thing, I think that especially in the world that we're in now, if you look at businesses, you really should be able to put your shoes in every part of your business to be able to understand it. Doesn't mean you're going to do it every day, but you need to know about it. And now we have all these tools in the world digitally. I mean, and they, you know, even how we're running businesses now, the model has changed. You can have your own business, contract out to all these different people, and not have to work as hard, and you can become, you can be a multimillionaire if you wanted to be.
Yes,
through what we have.
Yeah, I had 11 employees when I was running Massengill Marketing. Had a big office building, the whole scenario, and in the 24th year of that company, I closed my physical office and ran everything from my one-room office, which is the office I have right now. And with that, I was able to triple my business and cut my expenses in half.
Yep.
And that's realistic. That is very realistic. That's not any great feat on my part if you do that.
And
and then you don't have to pay wages. You contract everything out. You pay a very good price, but you can pick the quality you want from across the nation, and you can pick the person you want that can be in India, for that matter. And in fact, I still do a lot of work with folks in the Slavic countries and also in India. But I also do some work with people in Ireland. And they can get something. If I sent them an email today and needed X, Y, or Z, I would have it in 5 days if I sent them everything they needed.
Oh, I like that you put that. If you sent them everything they needed, because I think that's a good part of the business world, is how many times do people are like, well, why isn't this here? Because you didn't send it all in. I'm just saying we run publication, so I know that. But,
of course I understand that, but it is. You have an obligation. I'm talking about the person who's contracting with the vendor, to give him or her every opportunity to get it right the first time.
Exactly. And then you can build a relationship from there. With the way
that's it.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's exactly it.
Yeah.
When you look at the business models now, where you could be maybe a career as a doctor, and then there's new things changing all the time, no matter what career you're going into, things are changing at a rapid pace. And so we have to embrace that. So it's almost like people need to go to change school. Well, they've got your book, Conquer, Change, and Win. So that's your first thing there, because it can really help you. That really is an important thing, that everything is changing. If you look at even in industries, like taxis didn't want to change, so Uber said, okay, watch this. And so it can change, and you need to learn as much as you possibly can. So change is about education in many forms, in many things, all the time, constant education.
Well, that couldn't be better said. I mean, that's exactly what it's about. And change is what we all go through on a constant basis. We cannot stop change, but the very, very good news is we can absolutely, completely control change. And that's what the goal should be. Not to keep change from happening, which is impossible, but to make sure it's the kind of change and the change at the right time in the right speed that we feel is best for my or someone else's business. And once you do that and you see that this is what I really got to have, then it's easy enough to start with what you want and end up with more than you asked for.
I think you have to be in a position where you can look ahead, and you can't be looking ahead if you're complaining about having to look ahead. You know what I mean?
Stop wasting time.
Yes, that's exactly right. Change is constant, and we can't stop it. And of course, there's the old saying that change is constant, except from a vending machine.
And those you have to rock. Now, I wanted to ask you, Ralph, in the 10 questions, the 10th one we talk about what is the most important tip you could pass on to another person just getting started as a change agent. And you said learn to be an excellent listener and memorize and totally believe in the truth of the 20-50-30 rule, which is something that, and you talk about becoming a teacher. That's, a change agent and a teacher. And this is something you cover quite. It's one of the major things about it. It's like your principles of your book, really. I know we're going to be covering this on a follow-up interview in February. I believe it's February. I can't remember anything, but it's coming up. Everyone's the next one. But just if you can give everybody just a quick idea of what the 20-50-30 rule is.
Well, the 20-30-50 rule is just that. First of all, it is a rule. It's not a theorem. It's not something that could be so, or it's not something that works some of the time. The 20-50-30 rule is the kind of rule that you must totally believe in if you want to be successful. And every successful leader in their own way believe strongly in the 20-50-30 rule. And I've got a whole chapter on it in the book. I believe it's chapter 2. I'm not sure. Yep, it is chapter 2. And I'll read this quote from Charles Darwin that kind of tells us about change and what's really going on. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsible and responsive to change. Charles Darwin.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's all about my tailbone.
Most responsive to change. And that's just the way it is. 20% of every group will be change friendly. They're ready to go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then there's 30% of the people that are change resistors. They find something at fault. They just aren't going to go along with that, and we want to stay with the status quo, or if we could go back further than that, we would. And then the 50%, they are change neutral, and you spend 100% of your time with the 20% that's change friendly and the 50% that's change neutral. Now, what do you do with the 30% that are resisting? You totally ignore them.
That's right.
Ignore
I love that.
them.
That's it. If you're not going to help, get out of the way.
Yeah, because and then eventually they're going to go, well, why didn't anybody tell me about it? We're like, you had a closed mind. So there you go. And then eventually they'll make a change because the law of gravity will do so.
Well, the key to this thing is some folks find it very difficult. They want to go save everybody. And it can't be done, and you have to have the discipline to let the resistors resist and totally ignore that group and put 100% of your effort toward the 20 that are change friendly and the 50% that are change neutral. So you got 70% to work with.
I love it. I love it. And
And
that's
it
how
really
political
is
campaigns are won.
Yes.
Yes, I do dibble and dabble in politics, and
Yes.
I have run many political campaigns, and that's exactly the way we operate.
Wow. Ralph, I want to thank you again for sharing your story. And everybody, again, if you go to blendradioandtv.com, type in Ralph, you'll see him in our expert department. You'll get to link from there. You can read his answers to who he wants to have dinner with. It's funny. There's some funny ones in there, I'm just saying. And read his story as well and get some more of his insight. But, again, go to conquerchangeandwin.com and get the book, because it's an easy-to-read, fun book on the serious subject of change. And, of course, it's on Amazon and all those great places as well. Ralph is also on Twitter under his name, Ralph Massengill, and also on Facebook under Conquer, Change, and Win. So thank you so much for joining us, Ralph. You know I've got a little music for you.
Oh, okay, great. I appreciate that. And thank you, ladies, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to your next appearance. And, Ralph, I know, your history of music and playing and performing in bands. You remember, I think I may have actually played you one of her songs before, but I think I have to play this for you again if I've done this before. It's called My Turn Begins Today. It's by Lisa Dawn Miller, the daughter of Ron Miller, the songwriter Ron Miller, which I thought you would recognize that name, right? Ron
Yes,
Miller
absolutely. I thought you were going to do Chattanooga Choo Choo.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't do that. But I know we're on the Success Express. We should be playing that. But a beautiful song called My Turn Begins Today, because she had to make a change, and I thought you'd like that song. So,
I do, and thank you.
Thank you so much. You take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Have a great rest of the show.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the evening, everybody. ConquerChangeAndWin.com, and here is Lisa Dawn Miller.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I can see the sun is shining somewhere in tomorrow. There's a place for me somehow. I can hear the wind defining, whispering the answer to me now, and I vow and need to say, my turn begins today. It's time to fly and find a better way. I know I have to say goodbye to yesterday. Just watch me fly. It's gonna be my way. It's time, my turn begins today. The road has gotten long. It's taken time to find what I've been searching for, and now I know a place where I belong that I call mine. Although I've made it, there's much more. Open the door. It's gonna be my way. My turn begins today. It's time to fly and find a better way. I know I have to say goodbye to yesterday. Just watch me fly. It's gonna be my way.
My turn begins today, everybody. Lisa Dawn Miller, and go get that EP of hers. That's the title track of it, isn't it? That's
beautiful.
She performs a lot with her husband, Sandy Hackett, who's the son of Buddy Hackett, and I was saying earlier, she's the daughter of Ron Miller. And they do a lot of touring with the Sandy Hackett Rat Pack. And, once her kids got older, and she just said, it's my turn to do my albums. And so she made that change, and that's what we were talking about with Ralph. And making change in life is good. It feels good.
Yeah,
it's exciting. All right, so now what happens when you're at work and everybody starts gossiping and you're stuck in that room and maybe they're gossiping about your friend, maybe they're gossiping about you and you overheard it, or maybe you are the gossiper.
Yeah.
That
you
could
be the gossiper.
Are you the gossiper? Well, stay tuned, everybody. We've got a special guest joining us to teach us how to handle gossip. Know what she said after that? Oh my gosh.
Oh, not again. I knew she'd do it.
I cannot believe the audacity. I mean, really, how dare she? Everyone,
I'm not shocked at all.
I know. We're going to be talking about office gossip, and I just couldn't resist having some juicy gossip. And my gosh, you really should see what she said, or hear it, I should say. Sarah Elliston is back on Big Blend Radio today to talk about how to handle toxic office gossip. Say that 10 times real fast. Sarah is the author of the book Lessons from a Difficult Person, How to Deal with People Like Us. Of course, it's on Amazon, but you can go to her website to go get it as well. Go to sarahelliston.com. Sarah is a faculty member of the William Glasser Institute. She's a workshop leader and trainer who's also certified in values realization, parent effectiveness training, and reality therapy. And she's also one of our Big Blend experts. You can see her in our expert department if you go to blendradioandtv.com. You can listen to her interviews and read her articles, which are also featured in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. So welcome back to the show. How are you, Sarah?
I'm fine. Thanks for inviting me back. I love coming and talking to you guys.
It's always fun, and talking about office gossip. I mean, that's something that It happens, even with people that may not be in an office environment. People gossip through email and all kinds. I mean, it's like if they gossip on social media. Just saying.
Well,
sure.
When I was thinking about it before I came on, that on my television stations, there's one where they do the news like at 10 o'clock. And it goes from 10 to 10:30, and everyone else does it at 11. And so on this particular channel, from 10:30 to 11:30, they do something called, I think it's called Mail, M-A-I-L, or something Mail, and it's gossip. It's who did what to whom, and of stars or politicians, mostly stars, or people that they think are important, and their clothes, and wasn't that awful? And have you ever seen anyone in that kind of a dress before? It's. I was realizing, I will go to it when there's an advertisement during the news. I'll go over and say, I wonder what they're talking about. But I'm a little bit appalled that I even do that because it's just gossip. It's not anybody's business.
Yeah, it's
like the tabloid.
Well, yeah, and I think it really ruins a lot of lives when you we've interviewed a few celebrities and luckily had some amazing conversations because we didn't jump into those kinds of details. And then finally they'll actually just turn around and give you some really good juicy things. I mean, I don't even want to. I had to just bite my tongue right now on one, but it is amazing. It really does hurt those people out there, and it's like, hey, you want to be an actor? it shouldn't be that, hey, if you're an actor, now you're going to be the tabloids and people are going to say, like, how much weight you've put on or not, or, comment on your child's name. It just becomes this whole thing. And I think it's sad, but you're in that spotlight. But what if, if you have a talent for that, it's kind of that weird thing. But you wrote a great article, and everyone, it's going to be in the March-April issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, and it's up on blendradioandtv.com now. And you talk about office gossip. I mean, I think everyone has done it at some point in their life. But it's like, do you have permission to share the gossip, to tell that story? You talk about that permission. Tell us a little bit more behind that.
Well, someone said that to me once when I was beginning to gossip about something, and this is a man I've worked with for many years. I consider him a mentor and a friend, and he was so gentle. He turned and he said, "Sarah, did she give you permission to tell that story?" And I said, I don't know. Gee, I was completely dumbfounded. I said, probably not. And he said, then it's probably gossip and maybe we shouldn't talk about it. But he wasn't being harsh or critical. I mean, I think people are uncomfortable asking that question, and he's very gentle. I remember once saying to him, I'm correcting his pronunciation, and he said, "Oh, well, I was taught to do it this way." But he never confronts. He's never saying, "You're wrong." So I think it's possible to ask that question, to say, did someone give you permission to talk about that? I've always operated with the concept of confidentiality because I was being trained in parent effectiveness training and then in reality therapy, and what people tell you in a workshop or a counseling environment is just for that moment, okay? And so it's not something that you bring up to them later. You don't say, "By the way, you were doing this morning in this work, you were talking about this and what happened to you or your family when you were a child." You're not allowed to do that. You can't bring it up afterwards. And so I kind of got used to not remembering all the stuff about the other person unless they brought it up to me afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So when I found myself, I taught school for 10 years, and of course in schools there's all kinds of gossip, and I was very difficult. Probably I was probably very abrasive about, "Don't tell me how that student was in your classroom last year. They're starting off as an A student in my classroom." I was one of those teachers. I did not want to look at their records, and if someone wasn't doing well after a week of school, I would sit down and say, "How can I help you?" Not go into the faculty room and say, "What's the story on this kid?" Which is kind of what teachers do, and it's just tempting because if you're their teacher and you don't know what to do with them, and then someone says, "Oh, that kid's never going to make it," that was always a challenge for me to say, "I was going to make it in my class," because I'm just so, whatever the word is, someone says you can't do it, I always want to do it. So when I got into an office environment and discovered the way people gossiped there, I was quite taken aback because it was a little different. I mean, they were gossiping about each other. I'm sure they gossiped about me because I was difficult. And so I think probably it was like, "Oh, that's Sam Elliston. Who wants to work with her?" All my customers were outside of the organization. And
by the way, I'm not laughing at someone gossiping about you. I just thought you did a really good good character there. Yeah, good character. Good gossip about it.
I know of one woman who said to her boss, "I will not work with that woman." And she just flat out. I heard about it, a year or two later, and I remember wondering why. So it took me a long time to realize that I really, people didn't like my style particularly. But as a teacher and a trainer, which was most of my work outside the building, plus coordinating a volunteer program outside the building, I did fine. It was the within the organization at home base that I had difficulty with relationships, and I just I learned things last, so people didn't gossip to me as much, but I have seen the destruction of an organization. I worked in a church, and I worked for a cable company, and I watched the gossip in those organizations, and it was pretty treacherous, you know.
It's kind of like high school, you know, with the cliques.
Right.
You know, and certain people had to go on break together with each other, and they get in a little coffee room, and there'll be 3 or 4 of them that group together and whisper and do all sorts of stuff. And, you know, and it's kind of like those knowing looks, you know, that they give each other. If you walk in, that everybody shuts up. Not that this ever happened to me. And then they all they roll their eyeballs. You know, that kind of thing.
Well, my thing is I want to tell them to shut up, but that's not productive either.
But it's really
no, it isn't.
I think
it isn't.
It's a form of
I
bullying.
think I'm more apt to have walked in and have everyone get quiet than be in the group that was gossiping. I'm not saying I'm free of gossip at all. Excuse me. I think among my close friends, who probably I wasn't working with. You know, I saw them outside of work. And I know when I was in relationships, I used to have lots of comments about other people to the guy I was in, you know, my husband, and then the men I was dating after I got divorced. So, I mean, I'm certainly not free from gossiping.
Yeah, but at work, it ruins like productivity. You talked about that in your article. I mean, it really, number one, the morale goes down, so you don't feel like a team because, like you're saying, Nancy, it is a form of bullying in some ways.
It is.
It is.
And it can go far with that. And then at the same time, it just, you're not getting your work done. And to me, what do you do? Because, like, there's that side of me that just wants to turn around, and you could walk into the break room and, you know, if people are being nasty about someone, especially if you care about that person or it's a close colleague, there's that side of you that just wants to turn around and, you know, tell them, you know, what I really think. And that's not productive or good. So what would you do in that situation?
So the situation is that I walk into the break room, and I know they're gossiping about a friend of mine, and I think they're being unkind.
Yeah.
I think I would start by saying, "Are you talking about Susie, and did she give you permission to talk about her?" And if they sort of look at me like, "What are you talking about?" I say, I think gossip is unkind.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I would say. I also say in my article, you know, be nice, it's catching. So if I walked in and I knew they were talking about Susie, I might say, "Hey, can I sit down? I've got a question," and totally change the subject. I've got this project I'm working on. What do you think about blah, 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 blah? And just get them talking about something else. If there were enough people around so that it wasn't going to – if I went in and it was just the gossipers and I knew they were doing it a lot, I might sit down and say, "Hey, is this fair?" But if there were, you know, 4 or 5 tables and then I wouldn't – we couldn't really have a private conversation. So I just say, "I need your help." And ask them some questions to get them thinking about something else.
You know, I think venting is something that happens a lot, and sometimes it can take a bad turn. You know, maybe something happened and a person is venting that the way it turned out because of this other person isn't how they wanted it to turn out, so they're venting while they're gossiping. And then there's just the I have a really good story to tell you about somebody.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what happened on, you know, it's the water cooler. It's like if TV isn't good that night, let's do that. Well, what about in the management role too? As a leader, is that something that when, you know, you bring somebody in, I mean, does HR even get involved in this? It's been a long time since I've been in like a complete office scenario, but should there be something where we do not tolerate gossip? It should be in the handbook. No gossiping. Stop it.
Right. But as a man, sometimes I think people in HR are just as subject to doing it because they know all the secrets and they can't talk to anybody else about them. So no. I'm not putting people down in HR. They have a terribly tough job. But as a manager or a supervisor, it is definitely the role of that individual to say, or if, say, I was the manager of this rep, my role would be to say, we have a zero tolerance for gossip here. We don't talk about each other in a negative way. And so if I bumped into that, now if someone has a complaint, come into my office or let's find a private spot and you can tell me your complaint. That's different from making sort of snide comments about somebody who isn't there, like in a staff meeting. We had a staff person that I had to work with for about 3 years that I just never could figure out. Our brains were never on the same wavelength, and I wasn't ever sure she really understood what her job was, and they kept asking me to work with her because I guess I don't know why. I think they thought maybe I could help her, and I went to my boss often and said, I don't understand this, and I can remember talking to my husband about her, but I didn't really talk to anyone else. But it was very tempting. She would come in having done something that she thought was spectacular over the weekend, and I thought, what's so And then one of the things I remember, we had a conversation. Her husband wouldn't let them have a fire in a fireplace because it has to be completely burned out before you can go to bed. And they both had to go to work the next day. And I said, well, you just pull the glass thing across, the cover, and then you can do anything. You can walk out of the house. The house is not going to burn down as long as you've got it covered. Well, oh no. And I remember just biting my tongue not to turn to a colleague in another time. Do you believe what she said? How stupid? That's the kind of thing I wanted to say. I really had to bite my tongue on that. And you can tell I still feel like what a weird person she was. So I completely understand now. Luckily, I wasn't the supervisor there, but I did go to my supervisor and say, I really have trouble working with her. And my supervisor was great. She never said, so do I. She said, I hear you. What do you think you can do about it? And so that's part of the supervisor's role, is to say, we don't gossip if it's happening, and come to me with your complaints. And then when someone comes to you, it's really important to just listen. And I'm coming to this more and more. I wish I had written more about this in my book, that when someone comes to you to vent or complain or just needs to talk, and there's a problem, we don't have to solve it right away. We need to listen exactly to what they're saying and not try to think of the next thing we're going to say. Not go, okay, I can't say this, but I could say this. Just listen and let them vent. And really, unless they ask you a question, you don't have to say a word. This is a process called literal listening that Byron Katie, who has written numerous books, one of the most well-known is Loving What Is, and she teaches a process called The Work. And one of the things that she really encourages people to do is literally listen and don't say a word unless they ask you a question, because they're really not interested in your opinion. They just want to talk. And it's very difficult. It's not an easy process. But you know what? That's how you start building a relationship. That's how you are perceived as someone who is approachable. And of course, as a manager, you want that to be the way that to have that kind of a relationship. So I have some stuff in the article about don't think about what you're going to say, just listen. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned it because it takes practice. I have a friend who does this. And I'll be jabbering, we'll go for coffee or go out for dinner, and I'll be talking along, and I'll turn to her and say, well, didn't you have anything you wanted to say tonight? She said, oh, sure. I said, well, it's your turn to talk, kind of, because unless I asked her a question, like, what do you think, she was just going to listen to me, and I love it. I mean, it's a very comfortable place because I know she's not trying to tell her story until I ask her to. Does that make sense?
Right.
Anyway,
I think so. It's the listening part is important because you're at least building a relationship where okay, this is obviously, if you need to be heard, it's something that's important to you. And it's something like Nancy and I, just even with what we do, and we're always on, especially if she's in her geek land, there's the interrupting, like, I need to talk. Well, you can't, if you want me to hear you, can you just wait? Like, your brain has to be there. You can't just barge in and start, unless it's really like,
urgent.
It's urgent. Like my computer's gone down the toilet, but
yes.
Thank you to certain companies. But anyway, I won't go there. Behave myself. But don't even start me. But there's an emergency and then there's a non-emergency, and I think that the listening thing is really about saying, "Oh, I'm here to listen now," and that's a two-sided thing. And I like what you're talking about, because I think in an office environment, if people know, hey, she'll listen to you, but it's got to be about credible stuff. It's not the drama. It's not the gossip thing. It's not just to be school kids, in the schoolyard.
Well, I can remember a volunteer coming to me. I was coordinating volunteers for a good deal of the time that I worked in this particular job. Actually, for the last 30 years, that's pretty much what I've done, is worked with volunteers. And there's always one that comes to you and says, man, this person did that, and that's supposed to be my job. And I remember one of my responses was, what would you like me to do? How can I serve you? But now I'm not sure I would do that. I would wait for the person to ask me a question until they said something. Well, aren't you going to do something about it? Or aren't you going to say something? Then I think I'd say, oh, well, I wanted to make sure that you got to say everything you needed to say, and then I would try to come up with something. But I think I used to say, what would you like me to do? Well, tell her she's wrong. I said, well, do you really want me to sit down with you and negotiate this, or is there we're adults. If there were children, that was different. But I can remember saying that. Do you really want me to interfere in this relationship? And of course the person didn't, but they were annoyed that this other person was doing something that she thought was her job. And I didn't want to disagree with her and say, it's not just your job. I can tell you're upset. And do you think she could tell you are upset? And do you think that will resolve things, or do you think you should talk it over?
So
and do you want me to be part of it?
I think they both went to their separate little cliquey groups, and you know what? I just did this, and you should have seen what she did to me. And then the other one was like, every time I see her do that, it drives me crazy. So they all have their little groups, and they all gossip together, and then nobody does anything.
Well, actually, I think probably it seems like it's human nature when you're upset about something to turn to somebody else and say, did you see what he did to me or she did to me?
It is,
And it is. And in an office environment, it's definitely, or in a work environment, it definitely slows things down. People get anxious, and they start to feel like they can't trust. If we're talking about her, then they're probably talking about me. And eventually, the really good workers will look for another job.
Yeah.
They'll leave.
Yeah, exactly.
So you really do want to catch it. And as a supervisor or manager, you really have to police your tongue, if you will, in the sense of not doing it yourself, not modeling it, and saying, we really don't want this. One of the things that I also suggest, and I do know people that have done this successfully, and that is to just continually tell the employees what they like about the work that they're doing. And they don't just say, oh, you're such a good worker, it has to have some meat to it. There's a whole language of validation where you say things like, I appreciate you for, I applaud you for, I honor you, I like the way you do X or Y. So concrete and specific positive statements. And, it is catching. So that if the manager or supervisor manages to, if you can model that enough, then people start talking to each other that way. And if there are conflicts, as there, I think with volunteers, there's always little conflicts, like, well, how come she got that one and I got this one? And well, I said I would come for 2 hours, and now you're telling me it's 3, and I don't want to stay for 3, and of course I'm a volunteer, so I can go home, and that kind of thing. It's sort of like, wow, that's the person that needs to be listened to. They're feeling uncomfortable for whatever reason, and so it's important to listen to them, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I think it is. You have to walk your talk at the end of the day. You know, and
definitely.
I know you're familiar with the 8 Keys of Excellence, and you know, speak with good purpose is a main one. We actually it was posted up on their Facebook page today. I was thinking of you. I was like, well, that's good timing.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
I know who posted it. No, but anyway, it's good timing. But the quotes and everything, it really, you know, when you look at speak with good purpose, speak honestly and kindly, it doesn't mean you can't address a situation. It's about what is your goal when you connect with somebody. What is your goal? And, you know, are you maybe, you know, I remember once, Nancy, when we were in the musical organ industry, your sales manager asked you to tell, who's a friend of ours now, but at the time she had just started working with you, to basically close her puppies. How do we say this properly? Stop showing her puppies.
Yeah, put her puppies back in the kennel.
Yes, her top part was kind of busting through in a way, no pun intended, but and he couldn't handle it, and it was like that whole. You have to sometimes address things like that, but not do it unkindly, and that's the thing. It's like sometimes someone is doing something that really and that didn't look good. I mean, really, it wasn't a good thing for the clientele that were coming in. It wasn't good for anybody, and you have to say, I'm sorry, but you know, this. You don't go like, you know, this looks ugly. You go. And I'm not saying it looked ugly. I'm saying this. You go, hey, this is not part of the way the dress code here, or something like that. That isn't. She handled it really good. Well, she's funny.
She's a funny lady, and
hysterical.
She's very buxom, and it wasn't like she had low cut clothing on. It's just buttons would pop open here and there. So we went for a walk, and I said, you know, you might be really more comfortable in the kind of shirts or blouses that don't have buttons down the front, you know. And so she said, well, oh. So we went through to this one store, and I said, look in the mirror, and then she goes, well, look at that.
I can hear her voice right now and there. And she's the one who taught you the words puppies.
I know. She's like, my puppies are coming out the kennel.
So that was a way of correcting her without being critical or negative or making a suggestion for a change. Yeah, that sounds very gracious of you.
Her she's a nice lady, and I knew it wasn't on purpose. She wasn't like slutty. She just, you know, poor choice in clothing maybe, but
maybe that's the way she you know was dressed, and no one had ever said anything to her about it.
Yeah, and then
that's the thing that I've noticed.
See-through blouses, that doesn't work either.
Well, she came from the blues industry. She ran the James Cotton Club in Chicago with James Cotton was her partner.
And some of it was deliberate.
So it's a little different. Yeah, different scene.
Totally different environment. They expect you to sort of.
And there's a lot of that where we were working at the time, because they're all musicians working in there, going from working in clubs to suddenly having to put a tie on. Nobody knew what they were doing over there. And that was a gossip factory, and it was good. And I could write a book. It was good gossip factory. But I think I really like this communication part of it. I wanted to ask you what you think of this, Sarah. I've seen it a lot happening in the corporate environment changing of how office structures are. They're removing the cubicles. And because, number one, I think a cubicle would drive me bonkers. But then I don't want to be next to someone, really. And I want to work alone. But they're either going to having glass offices or there's one company I work with all the time, and they have photos of their offices. And all of them have their own desk all next to each other. So basically, if someone's chewing gum next to you, that's just too bad. You're going to go nuts. They're like everybody is right next to each other. They have space to write and work, so it's not like a call center kind of thing. But it looks like a spacious call center, let's put it that way. But it's a very pretty office. And I don't know if that's the way to break the barriers for someone like me. That would drive me nuts. I mean, there's just no way. But apparently, this is to make a more of an open and friendlier environment. What do you think?
Well, I'm curious about it because, of course, I worked in a cubicle, and I haven't had the experience of working next to someone like that, except watching. There was a movie where was it Robert De Niro was an adult intern, 60-year-old intern, and they had their work surfaces. They were set up that way for the interns, and they got to know each other really well. And they started, of course, paying attention to him and wearing ties and changing and becoming less sort of college-ish guys and more professional. So that would be my hope, is that, I mean, for me, if someone's sitting next to me chewing gum and making a lot of noise, I think I would have to say to them at some point, I'm really doing my best to ignore you, but it's really distracting. It's really distracting, and I wonder if you realize that you're chewing with your mouth open all the time. Some people can chew gum and you don't know it because they don't have their mouths open.
Well,
My hunch is that if someone's quitting smoking and so they're chewing gum, no problem. I won't say a word. But if it's someone that just chews gum all the time, I think it would depend on the job too. I would say something like, chewing gum isn't really professional. It's just not something you don't see. I was going to say our senators or our leaders chewing gum, but then I'm not sure. They may do that. I don't know.
No, don't start me. I'll be gossiping right now.
Yeah, what's the wrong? So the managers and the vice presidents, you don't see them chewing gum, and it's kind of a cultural thing where it's really not considered professional. If the person keeps chewing gum, then I'm going to stop there because I'm not in charge of them. But if I'm their manager, I would certainly say something. But what you're saying is asking about like the relationships there. I think what it means is that people have to be very respectful of each other's privacy, and they also have to be pretty darn circumspect in terms of their own lives. So that when they're at work, and when they're not, they're not. So they're not getting personal phone calls or doing a lot of personal activities on the job. And I guess I assume that one of the reasons they did that was also in order to have the team, quote, be more productive. I don't know how that works. I loved being part of a team so that everyone was talking to each other about what they were doing, and then they go back and work on it for an hour and come back and say, okay, what did you find? And this is what I'm seeing. And I love that kind of environment. I worked with some millennials who didn't. They just wanted to be given the task and be allowed to go off and do it. So I don't know how it would go for them. They were not interested.
Per type of business, maybe.
Yeah,
but I think
generational
Yeah. But when you're in an open environment where everybody, basically you can't gossip, really, because everybody's right there. I mean, everybody finds a way. Like look in school, you pass notes and make faces at each other and, there's
mess with each other.
Yeah, that's what it kind of reminded me of. I was like, this is like school. Like dangerous things could happen in there, but no, I think it is meant to be positive, and I see that the corporate way of things happening, it's changing a lot. I think it really is, but there's still always going to be gossip.
I think there is always going to be gossip. I know when I worked for the church for 9 years, I was in a large office, and there were 2 work surfaces in there. So that we each had our corner, and so I shared that office with like 4 or 5 different people over the 9 years. The other particular position seemed to have a higher turnover. I don't know if it was anything to do with me or not, but I remember realizing that there was one guy we got along really well, and he talked a lot, and I talked a lot, and he told stories, and I would have to say to him, it got to be where I had to say to him, hey, we need to work now, because we could have spent the whole workday just chatting and telling stories about our lives or the work that we were doing. I don't think we did gossiping as much, but it was very impossible to be distracted, and that's more where my head goes with these open work areas. Is you overhear somebody's conversation, and I just find it intriguing. But I've always liked working with the teams. The other thing about where a place we haven't talked about as much in gossip is when there's a change going on, when the organization's reorganizing, or you know there's going to be cutbacks. You've been told that you know, out of the 300 employees, 70 of you are going to lose your jobs. Everybody goes bonkers. I mean, it's terrible. There's incredible anxiety that's created, and the work really suffers. And I think that's a real opportunity for gossip, for people to be gossiping, complaining.
Or if the boss was doing something naughty that they shouldn't have, you know what I mean?
Management bears some responsibility. I mean, if you're going to have to make cuts and someone's going to lose a job, I don't think you should announce any of it until you've talked to the people that are going to lose a job.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way.
No, I know, and they just and sometimes you hear, like if you're in one of these great big corporations, you might hear it on the news. Oh, we're closing 15, 25 stores. But
by Sam's Club.
And, Toys R Us. And then you hear it on the news, and you may work there, and maybe your job's safe, maybe it isn't, you don't know. But that's a really poor way for management to handle things, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Now, what I experienced was reorganization, and people were terrified they were going to lose their jobs. And we didn't lose our jobs. Our jobs changed a lot. But I was really lucky because the woman that I worked for, at the time, the first time it happened, when I noticed people were bonkers, and I remember going to her and saying, "What is it that I don't know about this reorganization? Everybody's so nervous and upset." And she said, they're just the unknown. It's just the unknown.
See, that's not good. That's not good management, honestly, because if everybody's then the productivity goes down, right? And people will start looking for a job. That's the first thing I would do. If there's even a whiff of it, I'm out.
Well, I did. I asked her that. Should I be worried about my job? She said, "No, don't be worried about your job. You may have some new responsibilities." And as it turned out, we all had ended up with new responsibilities. We were put into a division with people we hadn't ever worked with before. It was really kind of fun in the long run, but there were some who were really quite worried. Now, my supervisor, as I said, kind of smooth the waters, if you will, if that's the right metaphor. She explained what was going to happen. That from what she could see, none of us our jobs were threatened. And so I just sort of watched everybody else going crazy in the other divisions, in the other parts of the organization. But as a manager, a supervisor, if you know what's going to happen, definitely, if someone's going to lose their position based on something and you know about it ahead of time, it's only fair to tell them. They did that with a couple of people later on. I remember somebody telling me that they were going to lose their job, and their job was changing. I said, "Oh, what's happening?" He said, "Well, this position's going to be eliminated in 3 months, so I have 3 months to find another job, and I can stay working here. Have the environment and the equipment and the technology and the contacts, but I'm mostly going to be looking for a different job." And I thought, well, that was nice. So that would be the perfect way to do it if you can.
Right, that's a better way to go. Sarah, good stuff, good information. Now I've got a special song for you today. Because
good.
I couldn't help but play this.
I heard it on the grapevine?
No, it's called "Ain't Nobody's Business."
Well, I was gonna say it didn't seem to come up, but one of the things that I had noted before I got on the call here was when someone's gossiping about me, I have to remember that what you think of me is really none of my business. It's because it's your belief and your reaction. So I like the choice of song.
Yeah, I got it from reading your article, and it's one of my favorite blues songs in the world. But this version is from Alison August, incredible singer-songwriter. It's off of her latest album, Holy Water. But everybody, go get Sarah's book, and I know you touch on this in your book too. So everyone, it's called Lessons from a Difficult Person: How to Deal with People Like Us, and it's a fun read. And you know, as you're reading it, you're like, oh, that was me. Oh, and it's still me. Okay, but there's things to do in there, and it's a good book, so go get it on Amazon, all those great places. Definitely go to SarahElliston.com. She's got a great blog there, too, so you get extra information. And you can read her article on Office Gossip. It'll be in the March-April issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, but if you want it now, you can go to blendradioandtv.com. Sarah's in our expert department, and you'll see her in our business section and quality of life departments as well. But thank you so much, Sarah. Good conversation. And we didn't say anything nasty about anybody. We were good gossipers today.
Yes, we did a good job.
Awesome.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, I know. Looking forward to next time. Everyone, here it is. Ain't Nobody's Business. And this is what I think. I think if someone's gossiping, just start singing the song to them. That's what we
There you go. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's the way to take care of it. All right. Take care, Sarah. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If I should take a notion to dive into the ocean, ain't nobody's business if I do. If I go to church on Sunday, then go honky tonk all day Monday, it ain't nobody's business if I do. If my man ain't got no money, I say here, take all my honey, but ain't nobody's business if I
everyone, again, that was Allison August, and you can go to AllisonAugust.com, and that's 2 L's in Allison because she's special.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Ain't Nobody's Business. It's on her latest album, Holy Water, and it is just such a good album. And it's got Paul Barrett from Little Feat on there. I mean, it's just
That's
such
cool.
a good Coco Montoya is on that album. And we like to play her music on the shows all the time, so check it out. AllisonAugust.com. You can also listen to her interview with us if you go to blendradioandtv.com. But, I love this conversation on gossip because I think it almost feels like, in a way, that the whole world is gossiping about all these things happening, not only in the workplace.
You mean like news?
And then, like, politically, and all of these things are happening. So it's pretty interesting to what's going on in the world. So
Well, I think there's maybe a difference between discussion and gossip.
yeah.
Maybe like gossip has like you're trying to hurt somebody, maybe, where a discussion you're not really trying to hurt somebody.
Well, now,
just repeating what you saw happen or knew happen. I don't know.
well, our next guest is going to talk about weed in the workplace. So, I mean, talk about some gossip. I mean, I don't know. Maybe everybody will just be giggling outside and getting the munchies. I don't know. But actually, it's really important. California has got some new laws out there regarding recreational pot. And what does that mean going to work? So stay tuned, and we'll have this conversation because I know somewhere, gossip is going to come out of this. So stay tuned. With recreational cannabis now legal in California, San Diego employment attorney Ward Heinrichs is back on Big Blend Radio Success Express show today to share legal insight for employers and employees. I don't know if you should be smoking a doobie instead of having a martini lunch. I don't know. I don't think you should be doing martini lunches either, but sometimes they're fun. But anyway, Ward is a regular Big Blend Radio guest and contributor to Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. You can read his articles and listen to his interviews. Just go to blendradioandtv.com. But also go to his website, especially if you're in San Diego, bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com. And you can follow him on Twitter at Ward Heinrichs, and just type in Ward Heinrichs and you'll get him on Facebook as well. Hey, Ward, how's it going?
I'm doing very well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. I want to know, is like California giggles now, like permanent giggle land, or like the office buildings have a different smell? What's going on?
We just can't stop laughing now. Woohoo!
I know.
Well, yeah, it's what? Yeah, no. Recreational marijuana is now legal in California. But that doesn't necessarily change the rules at work. So not everyone's giggling.
Yeah.
But maybe some people are. I don't know.
Well, how does that work? Like, if somebody goes and has a martini for lunch and goes back to work, they don't get fired unless they get drunk. Then they might.
Or it depends on your job.
So if you go to lunch and you smoke a bit and come back, I mean, you're not really in the workplace. You're not actually working when you do it. You just, I don't know, do the effects wear off quicker?
Yeah, wow, those are good questions. I mean, yeah, the 2 martini lunch used to be, fairly standard back, I guess, in the 50s and 60s, before I started working, because when I started working, we weren't doing 2 martini lunches. I barely have a beer every once in a while at lunch, so that's just not the norm anymore.
Yeah.
It used to be a big deal.
And
now it's wheatgrass.
What's that?
And now it's wheatgrass in your smoothies.
Yeah, wheatgrass, right. Go to the gym, drink some wheatgrass, and that's your lunch.
Yeah, okay.
But, yeah, no, actually, coming back to work intoxicated, whether it's from marijuana or alcohol, could get you in trouble. Now, it's going to depend on the employer's policies. Maybe there are employers out there who don't have a drug policy, and I'm sure there are. Maybe there are employers who don't have an alcohol policy. So then there's no clear guidance as to how that would be handled. But if they do have a policy and it says, hey, you can't be drunk, and what is drunk, so there's going to be some gray area there. You can't be high. what is high. There's some gray area in there. And if we catch you that way, you violated the policy and we can terminate you.
Okay, so what about when back in the day when I worked for someone, they made me do drug tests. So I had to do the little pee-pee test and all that. And, so I know that was like part of the insurance deal for them. And so there would be and I lived in Florida, and weed was around, man. It's like, I don't know why, but as we're talking, I can smell some, but I don't know why. I can smell it literally.
It's a flashback.
I know. I had a boss who had flashbacks all the time. But anyway, he was really fun to work with. He did. You've been them too, driving in the car and see police lights, and he starts tripping out. But that was acid. He had acid
crazy.
Flashbacks.
And
but
remember one time he
Wow.
said, "Is this a yellow piece of paper or a pink?" And I would look at him like, "Bob,
dude,
what?"
He really did do Woodstock.
He was that boy.
It was fun, but going back to that, so like if a company says, okay, you need to be able to pee in a cup every month if that's what happens, is that what you're saying with drug policies too? That you have to be clean at home, even though recreational is okay? Like, what happens in that world?
Yeah, there are limited circumstances in which they can test for, make you do a urinalysis test. If there is cause to believe that there is a violation, then yes, you can do a urinalysis test. If they're pre-screening, you can do one. After employment, it's much more limited when you can do drug tests, but you can do random tests. You got to give warning. There's some circumstances in which you can do them. But the bottom line is, whatever circumstance that you legally fall into, and you're required to do a urinalysis legally, if the drug policy is, hey, we don't tolerate marijuana at all, then you can be terminated or not hired. And those policies have been, and there's case law about that too. There, when we had the medical marijuana law passed, it was in place for a while before this case came out, and someone challenged it, and they said, "Hey, look, we're allowed to do that. This is legal, but my employer wants to not hire me, or my future employer wants to not hire me. I don't think this is right." And the Supreme Court said, "No, employers are allowed to have alcohol and drug-free workplaces." And drug-free meant if you do not pass the urinalysis test, you can be terminated or not hired.
Wow. Now, what happens if a dispensary does that and says, look, you can work here, but you can't taste the product?
Well,
that's
I'm sure that's like being a bartender and drinking.
Yeah, that's true. You're not allowed to drink on the job, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
I was going to say, you're not supposed to drink in a bar. Like if you're working in a bar, you're not allowed to drink in the bar while you're on duty, maybe. Some say no. And then, but if you were running a dispensary, or you're the manager of the dispensary, or you work there, could a dispensary say you can't taste the product or smoke the product? You can just sell it, and but you're not allowed to get it in your system. They could be drug free.
Yeah, and in fact, I think there is a law. This law is really long, and I haven't read all of it. I think that I read somewhere where it said that they're not allowed to use while working. So it's actually, I think it's illegal under the California recreational use law.
Wow.
But assuming that, let's say that maybe I'm wrong on that, because I didn't read that in the text, and the text is huge. It sprawls all over the place. If an employer has, again, it's the employer's policy that really counts here. If the employer says, "Oh, marijuana is okay on in the workplace that I own and run," well, then it is. You won't violate recreational law. Now, the problem is you could violate. Well, you certainly would be violating the federal law. And that's one reason why the statute's written the way it is. They don't want employers to violate federal law. They don't want California law forcing employers to violate the federal law. So, but the policy could be, I don't have a problem with it. And in fact, I've seen places where it doesn't seem like it's much of a problem. I'm sure there's no official policy that says, yeah, please light up, but, maybe it happens. And so in that case, you're not going to get terminated because the employer's not going to exercise that right.
Mm-hmm. So it really just depends on the employer's choice whether they want to be
really
federally safe or whatever. And then it depends on the kind of company too.
Kind of work.
Yeah. But I was reading too, like with this, you just because you can grow weed now doesn't mean that if you're renting that your landlord's going to be cool with you growing weed or even smoking it on the property. I mean, there's like property owners have a right of whether or not you are allowed to smoke on the property. It's like it's not that. You can't just cross over into California and start like working somewhere and light up. It's just not going to happen. It sounds like it. Everybody hears recreational, marijuana, and it's like yippee-yay, but there's laws, on being intoxicated. Period.
In public or
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, under the recreational use law, you're not allowed to do it in a public place. It has to be a private place.
So you can't go like
fun.
sit in the park and
people
light
watch. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Oh, so you just
well,
really have to stay
you're
in
not.
the house.
Well, I mean, you are allowed to drink in public to some degree, but there's all those.
That's
you can't just
different.
walk
So you
down.
can't
You're
go
not supposed to walk down the sidewalk with a highball in your hand.
Right. So
No,
here's the deal.
that's a bad
That's
one.
a bad one. Now here's the deal. I found out that you're not allowed to walk on the beach in Oceanside with a cocktail in your hand because
Well, duh.
I was walking from friend's house to friend's house. It was 4th of July, and a cop came after me on a horse, and I started talking to the horse. He's like, "Ma'am," and I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'm in a different country. Sorry." I learned, but so like if you're not allowed to smoke, I would drink. They have beer gardens. Like if you go to a festival, and I know you know about Beer Garden Ward with like
Right.
Oktoberfest.
I
matter
love
if
Oktoberfest.
they have like designated areas for beer and
Yeah.
the beer garden. So even if it's a festival, that means you still can't light up legally. So in one day they say there's a weed garden that's allowed.
Like a weed festival.
Yeah. That's going to be different.
Well, yeah, and part of it's enforcement though too. Let's say there was a weed festival, and so everyone went out in the desert and they, popped up some tents and started playing music and invited bands in, and it's known as a weed festival. Now, is anyone there going to care? Well, probably not. So
Right.
even if it's in public and maybe not technically legal, a lot of things don't get enforced. And that's the way it's always been. I mean, before the recreational use law, things like that happen they happened, put it that way.
They
I mean,
do happen.
yeah, just go to a Grateful Dead concert,
Yeah, exactly.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
It's like how many people can be arrested at one time?
Yeah, so I mean, festival organizers hiring people may be a little different. There's, this is going to be so interesting to watch because I bet you more things happen. So, I mean, the whole thing is against federal because isn't Jeff Sessions trying to stop this thing like all the way, like stop states in some way?
Well, all right. The last thing I read on that was he said that the local assistant U.S. attorneys could enforce the federal law, the way they see fit. So in California, I'm assuming the local assistant attorney won't change their policy. They're not trying to enforce, there's some marijuana busts on a federal level, but it's not like they're really trying to fine people and get them in trouble. They're not looking to find recreational users who are legal in California but not legal in under the federal law. So the way it sounded, it didn't sound like it was going to change much. Okay. But Jeff Sessions did say that we will enforce marijuana laws. He did say that, but then he kind of backed off a little bit.
Yeah, because I don't even want to get started, but on that. But the reality in your article, and everyone, Ward's got an article on weed. I love saying that. Sorry. It's
weed
up
in the
on
workplace.
Yeah, I know. It's fun. It's up on BlendRadioandTV.com and will be in the March and April issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, which is prime season for growing. Just saying. But anyways, it's spring.
And you're allowed to have 6 plants. You're allowed to have
You-
6 plants in California.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
You, I mean,
Yeah, you can grow
you
6
know,
plants.
wow, that's. I mean, I don't understand the whole thing on growing and harvesting, but I had friends once who did that legally, actually, and for medicinal marijuana, and it's fascinating. It's pretty fascinating. But you, in the article, you talk about going back to the drug-free workplace. I just want to make sure I got this straight in my head. If say Jeff Sessions maybe smoked a doobie and got happy about it and said, okay, it's not a substance one anymore, it's like or controlled substance, this is fine. Companies can turn around, like if the federal government didn't care at all about weed anymore, and maybe had to watch it that people weren't driving into each other at a very slow bumper car rate, companies could still turn around and say, no, we want it to be drug-free, even if it's not. It doesn't matter what the federal government says on that level.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the way I'm interpreting it is even if the federal law changes and marijuana is not a Schedule I controlled substance anymore, let's assume marijuana is actually legal. It's not a controlled substance. The way the law is worded, it sounds like employers still could have policies prohibiting marijuana. I mean, the use at all. So, because they use the word or the term prospective employees, so that's got to be testing, right? I assume.
Yeah.
And that means they could test
Mm-hmm.
prospective employees and say, hey, we're not going to hire you because you violated our marijuana policy, even though it's legal across the country. So I think that's allowed, but that may have to be litigated. I'm not absolutely sure about that.
I've known Matt. He got tested, and before he worked at San Onofre, he got tested. And you have that 30-day trial thing when you work for a company. And I remember that's the first time that I had to do a PP test or whatever you called them, the thing in a cup. And I was like horrified. I was like, what do you mean? That's I thought that was just a violation of privacy as far as,
Well, they didn't watch you.
I know. I've just, I was like, okay. But anyway, I had to do it in the 30-day thing. And the same thing for Matt. He had to be clean before they would even, it was part of the second part of your interview was you had to have no pot in your system. And it's an interesting thing because if you're going for a job, you better be clean because it takes a month to get it out of your system depending on your body and who you are and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right.
Whereas cocaine, it's 72 hours. It's like boom, so everybody can walk around on coke. But
okay, but
you can't. You're going to get busted if you smoke because you're going to be slower. I don't.
Well, I'll defer to your experience, Lisa.
I don't do either. But well, I've had my moments in life.
What about the idea that so if the federal government said they don't care, which I don't think they ever will, but if they go, okay, we don't care, we'll leave it up to the state.
Eventually they will. It's changing. It's going to change. I think eventually. I mean, it may take 50 or 100 years, but I think it will.
Yeah, okay. If the employer doesn't care and the federal government doesn't care, what about the thing you're like? I mean, for when I was working, people could smoke not marijuana but cigarettes in the break room, and then finally that changed. So even just from the idea of the smoke, if everybody went into the break room
contact
and
that.
yeah. I mean, I'd be giggling my whatever off without even smoking it. Not that I know anything about that.
Well, yeah, and here's why I think that employers, even if the feds say it's okay, I think employers will still have the right to control their workplace and prohibit both alcohol and marijuana. So I don't think you'll, unless an employer wants it, people lighting up, then I don't think that the government will rob them of their ability to control their workplace that way. They'll just say, no, you can still prohibit it if you want to. Now, I think the bigger question is, well, what about, it's legal everywhere, federal, state, and can you still test for it? It's one thing to be high at work. It's another thing to do it after work and then come in and get tested, and you're not affected.
Yeah.
So that's where I think
that.
it might change.
That's great.
Yeah, that's what I think, because even for the medical marijuana side of things, that what you were talking about that too in your article, and now it's like, if someone really does need it medicinally, some people, I mean, it's in their house, with their kids because of seizures, and there's so many different reasons. And some manage just to get it because they have a good doctor that just has a really good prescription pad. But there's people that really do need it, and it's sad if they're doing it at home. They're not coming to work, happy and giggly. That's two different things. It's the same thing. You can go home and have a cocktail and go to work the next day if you're
even if
not
they
overdoing it. But yeah,
right.
And so you're not getting tested. But I mean, you can smell it when people are like that. But you can smell weed too, but there's that thing where people should be allowed to have their choice. What I wanted to ask you is, I know we talked about harassment in the workplace last time, in hospitality and in the food industry and stuff like that, and you were talking about training has to happen on all levels. Like you were saying, like, don't just wait for a law to tell you to do it. Do everything you can, and put the posters up and all that. With this changeover, do you think the same thing has to happen in the workplace, that the employer needs to, and the management needs to talk to the employees and say where they are on this, so that everybody knows and doesn't have a workroom sneak out for a fun lunch?
Yeah, no, I do. And and I think that there could be a lot of misconception on part of employees because recreational use, it's legal, we can do what we want. Well, the law really allows employers to do what they want, and if they really have a strict marijuana policy or anti-drug policy, then they're allowed to, and they may get a bad surprise. So as an employer, you don't want to be surprising your employees. You want your employees to understand the rules as best, because you hired them for a reason. You hired them to do whatever job you hired them for. So you don't want to get rid of them. I mean, you that's the assumption.
Yeah.
So you need to tell them, hey, we still have a very strict marijuana policy here, and if they do, and we're going to enforce it. Just because you can do it after work doesn't mean anything.
See, there goes the brownies. No more brownies in the break room.
Well, and like I said, there once you're hired, there are limited times in which they could actually test for it. There's only limited circumstances. But pre-hiring, that's really where you have carte blanche to do that kind of stuff. But still, even then, they need to know what the policy is and make the wisest choices to keep their jobs, if they want to keep their job.
Now, has it changed at all? I know before we've talked on California law could be different, like on minimum wage. San Diego City is going to be different than San Diego County, like the mountains of Julian is going to be different than, San Diego City on minimum wage law. Now, is it the same with this, or is California across the board is this way, or have different areas said yes to growing and smoking? I mean, has that changed with the laws according to city?
Yes, what different cities, municipalities, and other types of governmental entities inside California can do is restrict how it's dispensed and transported. They can't say you can't grow your own 6 plants. Now, there's limitations on where you can do it and how you can do it and things like that. That's already in the law. But they can say, we don't want dispensaries. And there are cities, I'm just trying to remember which ones. I think there's a couple in San Diego County that have denied the right to have dispensaries. And San Diego City has just recently passed an ordinance that allows for it, but it's super restricted. And so the local governments are allowed to restrict dispensaries.
Wow. Okay. So, because I know some of the communities that we represent with on the tourism side, they have one chamber of commerce. I mean, all the chambers of commerce we know and work with. There's like town hall meetings on to light up or not, and it has really been interesting for them. Let's put it this way: sitting in those meetings, and there's been some heat, literally between people that
are pro and
against. It's been really quite a hot topic. It really has to see what's who's allowing what and where, and some people are very scared of it. And then I wonder too, if it was allowed and somebody goes and works at a dispensary, how that works if once they move on to a different career and that's part of your resume. You've been working in a dispensary for 2 years. If there's going to be some prejudice to that person that worked in the dispensary.
Not if you're not allowed.
Depending on the next place you go, if they think, you're a stoner if you work there, so you don't know anything. You know what I mean? That kind of there's that attitude.
That might be. I'm wondering if people who worked at distilleries just after Prohibition ended, whether they had some of that type of, face some of that
You're
type of pressure. You're going to go to hell,
boy.
I don't know. And my guess is the more it's around, the more accepted it's going to be.
Right.
But there is a difference, I guess, in the main thing is, I guess what I'm getting at is, the main thing is, you can't go to work drunk, you can't go to work stoned, just don't do that, and you should be pretty good. If you happen to work for a dispensary or people don't hold that against you, well, maybe a little bit nowadays, but 20 years from now, I doubt it, not much. I don't think that means you're a stoner. I suppose if you're, stoned all the time, that's a problem, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like alcohol.
Well, I think it's your behavior. I mean, because
how you
you would be saying that every bartender is a drunk, and
that's
not
true. Most bartenders I know don't even drink, so they're like we've been there, done that, and barely have a cocktail here and there. Well, not all of them, I should say. But I was going to say. The one thing, too, is transportation. The transportation industry, that's got to be something that definitely employers have to talk to their employees about because rules still apply.
Absolutely. There are federal laws that I think that will never go away, I don't think, is you drug test drivers in the transportation industry because you just don't want them. You want to make sure everyone's clean when they're driving. And if you're a professional driver, the standard's higher than if you're a non-commercial driver.
But even just as a regular person, I'm pretty sure that California isn't going to say, "Go ahead, drive your car while you're stoned." I mean, they wouldn't say that.
Absolutely not. No, that's illegal. The big issue with that is police have said, well, it's harder to determine if someone is under the influence of marijuana than it is to determine if they're under the influence of alcohol. You've got some pretty non-subjective tests for alcohol. But they're saying that marijuana, it's not so clear. Someone could have a high level of THC in their system and not appear very stoned, and some can have way less and appear pretty stoned. So I guess they're saying that there's a big difference. And with the blood alcohol, they can say, well, even if you don't seem like you're drunk, if it's 0.08 or more, that's illegal.
Drunk, Well,
and it's hard to do that with marijuana. Maybe they will, but it's harder to do.
If you're the cop, if the car's weaving, they're drunk. And if the car's going real slow and they're not 80 years old, they're stoned.
Yeah, I remember. How I know a little bit about what goes on in that world is being in a band, and you see everything. And I didn't know what meth was or crack or I didn't know any of that until I realized the drummer was that way, and then our guitarist was way out. And I remember catching a ride with the guitarist, and all of a sudden he was going down Interstate I-15, right? It was 25 miles an hour. I'm like, what's going on? Why can't you drive? And it's he's like, and I'm like, oh, dude, no. It's 25 miles an hour all the way back. Not a good thing when it's a band. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So I'm glad we could talk about this because I see so many things going on, and I know that police are, checking out what's going on out there. And so all I know is I don't know how you get it home since you're not allowed to transit. How do you get it home? You have to put it in the back of your car. Like if you buy it at a dispensary, you put it in the back of you got to put it in the car.
I guess it depends how it's regulated. Boy, that's a good question.
I think you have to put it in your trunk.
No. For personal use, you can transport it
Okay.
I'm getting into an area where I'm not really
Yeah,
clear on because I've really only analyzed this in terms of employment. Now we're talking about personal stuff, but I'm really you're allowed to have an ounce or less. You're allowed to possess that. So I think that means you can also put it in your car and transport
it. Smoke it. But you can't smoke
it. You can't smoke it. Yeah, you can't be under the influence.
Yeah.
And you can't do it in a public place. And is that a public place or not? I mean, we can go round and round about that. But so there are limitations on what you can do with it, in public or in a car. But you certainly, I think it's clear that you can transport it. Now, the transportation regulations I was talking about in the article were about dispensaries.
Yeah.
There are big issues in California, in San Diego about who can actually deliver it. Can the drivers who drove for the medical marijuana dispensaries still drive for the new recreational use dispensaries? And it looks like there's a different application they have to go through to drive for the recreational use dispensaries. So they have to, if just because you drive for a medical, my understanding is just because you drive for a medical marijuana dispensary doesn't mean you could drive for a recreational use dispensary.
Wow, yeah, it's
and
different.
Now you can't even drive for the medical marijuana one because that new law prevents you from doing either. So you have to have you got to go through a different process to be qualified. And I think you have to actually work for the dispensary.
Wow.
Yeah.
What happens to the dealers?
You mean the black market dealers?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but what happens to the guy on the corner?
But that's the whole point of this, is to get rid of
Yeah, I know.
them.
Some of them are not happy with it.
Well, yeah, that's one of the points. Now, you know what I heard, though? I just heard something else. There's so many things you hear. You see on TV or you might read a quick article or something. Yeah. And one of them was, this is going to be unfair to people in lower income stratas because they won't have access to the medical marijuana. They were saying that it's mostly upper level, mid class or above, and so they'll still be buying dime bags on the corner.
Well, you need to be careful with that. No, we've done a lot of shows on marijuana. Dr. Dina, she was actually the person that the TV show Weeds was crafted after. Her story. She came on our show and she was telling she wanted it to be legalized for one reason. People start getting the cheap stuff, and there's fake weed out there, and that's just wrong. And you could end up getting the wrong kind of weed for your body, and there is an art to this. It's like some people should never drink rum. I'm not saying you, Nancy, but some people should never drink it. They're bad on it, So it's the same thing on weed, that certain people match with the right weed, and especially if it's a medical thing, especially on that. So there is a reason, and I know people don't like some people don't like it because of the taxes. Now there's taxes on it and stuff, but that helps schools. I always thought that was funny. That's
a good
help
thing.
Education. Yeah, it is a good thing, but
taking it out of the black market's a good thing. It just makes total
it is
sense.
Because there's some bad people out there with some bad weed that makes people really, really sick. So I think this is a positive move, and I find it fascinating.
Well, there's that. There's also the war on drugs that no one's won for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a libertarian. I just go, wow, I see all this money, all these deaths over
and all the people
something that's here anyway.
prison.
It just didn't make sense to me ever. And it's just like, all right, make it legal and tax it. And to me, that's a good solution.
That's fair. It's fair, and it's going to schools and things like that, which I think, and infrastructure for communities. And this whole thing with weed, where people are getting nailed and put in jail, corporate prisons, to make the corporate prison money, and half the politicians are in bed with that. So, sorry, but that's a whole other thing.
Wow. Yeah. You're really up on that soapbox.
I'm sorry. I get into a whole thing on the corporate prison and the marijuana market is so hand in hand. I think we've done too many interviews on this for the years on it. It is fascinating, but things are moving forward and it's exciting. And thank you for joining us, Ward, and enlightening us with this wonderful conversation on what to do work-wise and with weed. So don't go out in your break room and light up and order a pizza for the office. That's not a thing to do.
Don't do that.
I think someone's going to come up with some concoction of after you smoke a joint, drink this, and you'll pass a test.
Golden Seal. Sorry, but anyway, you still won't.
You're supposed to tell.
Sorry, but it takes a long time to get it out. Ward, everybody, go to bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com, and if Golden Seal doesn't work, call Ward. I could see a whole new line of employment law for you now. It's like his website's going to have a whole department dedicated to weed. Golden Seal didn't work, call Ward. But anyway, again, it's bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com. He's on Twitter at Ward Heinrichs and Facebook as well. And keep up with him. He posts all kinds of laws of what's going on in San Diego and California especially. So whether you're an employer or an employee, follow him and watch for his articles in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine and on BlendRadioandTV.com. Thanks so much for joining us, Ward.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon. You take care. I got
okay, you too.
Now.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye-bye. I could talk about marijuana laws all day long.
I guess.
I know. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just saying. That's all I want.
You're in the wrong state.
I know. Great conversations today. I mean, it was just, so interesting. Ralph's story, Ralph Masengill, talking about his, going from alcoholism to, shooting and shooting himself and making it through that, and all the work he's done. It's an amazing story. And then also talking about office gossip with Sarah Elliston, and then weed with Ward. It's been a great show, everybody. I want to thank everyone for joining us, all of our listeners. You guys rock. Of course, we will be back on Friday. We have our Friday show. It's all about nature, and we have travel, food, and wine writer Hillary Larson joining us. She's a co-owner of North Winds Wine Consulting, and she's going to talk about her nature trip at Moran State Park on Orcas Island in Washington State.
Ooh.
And Orcas Island is beautiful, these old-growth forests and the water. I mean, these islands in Washington State are amazing.
They really are.
Yeah, and there's, of course, some history in there, too. She always gets some history for us. And then excited to have David Mizejewski back on the show. He's the National Wildlife Federation naturalist, and he's also the author of the award-winning how-to book, Attracting Birds, Butterflies, and Other Backyard Wildlife. And he's going to talk not only about the National Wildlife Federation's Garden for Wildlife program, which rocks. He's also going to talk about what you can plant in your garden to attract birds, butterflies, and critters, cool critters like possums and raccoons and deer. I know other people don't want them, but I do.
Oh, no, they're nice.
They're awesome. So he's going to talk about that. And we're going to re-air, because we always think about all the wildlife and nature, Steve Schneickert's Hollywood History Nature Style.
Ooh.
Yep, a little Born Free action in there since it's the birth anniversary, January anyway, for Joe Adamson. And we're going to play some nature-inspired music. So this is going to be this Friday, January 26th, 2018, airing live at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And, again, keep up with us at BlendRadioandTV.com. For National Parks and Travel information, go to nationalparktraveling.com. We're also on Twitter at Big Blend Mag and Facebook, Big Blend Magazine. But to close the show, we have to play some music here. And I thought we'd play Work because – you
have to go to work.
It just sounds like, if you did go and have your little moment of lighting up in the break room,
you're gonna get
this could be your song. So paranoia may ensue. I don't know, but somehow you may not want to work for the rest of the day. So this is from our friends, the Joiners, over in Alabama. They're out in Birmingham, and this is from their very first album, Olives and Oil. And that's what you get if you have the munchies anyway. But you can go to bandcamp.com to find their music. So here it is, Work. Take care, everybody.
I don't want to go to work, working for a man who just treats me like a jerk, and he doesn't even know my name. Next time he asks me, I'll swear it's put and take. But I don't want to go to jail. It stinks what I breathe in, and there's no room to exhale. Won't somebody go my bail? 'cause I don't wanna go to jail. Now please release me from this grip I never signed. Enough of this. Now please release me from this hole. Let me grow old. Let me grow old. And I don't wanna go to war. And I ain't much for shooting, that ain't what I'm aiming for. And all my soldier friends are poor, fighting rich man's war. And I don't wanna go outside. It's so scary on TV, and television never lies. Everything it sells I buy. And I don't wanna go outside. Now please release me from this grip I'd never signed. Enough of this. Now please release me from this hole. Let me grow old. Let me grow